Hello, this is Mish, and welcome to another review of WestWorld. So this one was for Season 1, Episode 4, called Dissonance Theory. So before I get started, spoilers. So if you've not seen the episode, go and watch it, then come back. So I'm going to break this review down into four main parts, as there's four main story arcs continuing here. So we'll start with Maeve, the head prostitute of the brothel, probably the owner of the brothel. So she is continuing to have dreams, but they're getting more vivid, and she can understand them more. And we had quite an interesting revelation with her. So she keeps seeing these. She wouldn't understand it, obviously, because it's not programmed into her history. But it's surgeons working on her when she's on the surgeon table, and also people coming to collect the bodies. So they're almost in hazmat suits when they're doing that. So she keeps seeing these people and seeing, computers and seeing the people in hazmat suits, and obviously a pretty confusing situation for someone that doesn't understand that world. So she seems to obsess about it, and we see her go back to her house and check her abdomen for a bullet because she remembers getting shot in the abdomen. Then she draws a picture of the guy in a hazmat suit, and it's a very cool idea. I quite like that. Kind of writing a story for yourself. It was done in the Memento movie quite a lot. So drawing a story for yourself, so she knows she's going to forget, so she's trying to remember, put this somewhere. She's thinking that she's going to have her memory wiped or something. So she goes to hide the picture she's made of the person in the hazmat suit, opens the floorboard, and there's a whole swag in there. And that for her obviously is petrifying, because she knows that this situation has played out so many times. And we see a good handful of paper in there as well. So we can see that this situation's been going on for quite some time. And so she keeps obsessing about it. And we see her also have interaction with some native Indians. One of the children drops a toy, which is similar to the guy in a hazmat suit. So there she gets the idea that other people know about it, that it might be some spiritual or religious thing. So she's obviously freaking out the whole time, and she waits for Hector to turn up. And as soon as he turns up, he turns up towards the end of the episode, but she manages to, capture him, take him aside and say, tell me about this, because he is, I think, part Native American there. So he tells her, that's the shade people, the people between worlds, which is an interesting parallel, because, I'm not sure if that is some Native American concept, or if it's just been programmed into their code for this TV show. So it was cool to see that situation there, and she says, cut me and take the bullet out because there's a bullet inside me. And they find the bullet, and very intriguing situation there. They both kind of realize, well, we're going to die anyway, so what's the point? So how much will they remember next time that they're brought back online will be interesting to see. Or will they manage to wipe them and lose all that information? But they pretty much figured out that they were in a repetitive world, Groundhog Day situation. So that was a very interesting point from those characters. Well, I'm not sure if Hector found out that. He was just kind of along for the ride, but she definitely did. Okay, on to the next person, the next big thing here, which was probably Dolores and Bernard. It starts with Dolores and Bernard. So Bernard informs her, you're trying to find a maze. That is what you should be looking for. The answers are in the maze. And once again, she's kind of evolving. It seemed that she didn't evolve that much this time, but she's definitely still getting more advanced as she's going along. So we see that Dolores is, she's found William and Logan. So she's following them along. And they head to the town where Lawrence... So Lawrence is the guy that's captured by the Man in Black. So they head to that town, and Dolores runs into Lawrence's daughter. And she's kind of, says, are you okay? Where are you from? And the daughter turns around. So Lawrence's daughter turns around and says, I'm from the same place as you. Don't you remember? And then Dolores has a flashback. So it's a flashback to the church. So that's the church that's buried. So we see the steeple of the church a few episodes ago. So it all seems to be based around that church, and also the daughter, the child, is drawing the maze in the sand. So the church and the maze are definitely linked, and to these characters. So possibly Dolores and the child and Lawrence are all original characters. So they all have this information in there. And maybe that's what the Man in Black is. The Man in Black knows about. Okay, on to, I guess, so Dolores, Logan and William, they continue on their way. So if you remember, William and Logan are kind of doing a manhunt or a bounty hunt, and they eventually capture that person. So I guess an interesting twist for those two characters, that they capture them. They're going to take the person back to the main town to hand in to get their reward, and Logan ends up shooting the person that was assisting them. So the host that was assisting them, and he wants to go off with the person they've captured because he thinks that's going to be a more interesting story. He's trying to convince William to put on the black hat and go with him. So play the evil role. This is a game. Don't worry about it. Let's do it. And we see that Logan takes off with that person, but William doesn't go. So we've got a separation there. So Logan's off doing his evil stuff, and it looks like that William and Dolores are doing something else. So that is yet to be found out. Okay, on to the next main story arc. Okay, so we'll talk about the Man in Black, as that's interesting, and that's probably still, I guess, the vaguest is what's going on with that. So we see him down in that lake riverbed killing snakes. So he took what the little Lawrence's daughter said, literally trying to find snake eggs, and then they keep doing that for a little bit. Then they realize actually the snake is a tattoo on one of the characters which they see. So they end up helping her and her band of guests and hosts. There's a mixture in there. So they help Hector escape the prison. Which, I mean, there's more to that story than that, but that's just an overview. So we see that, for the reward for helping Hector escape, the lady with the snake tattooed on her back, she tells the Man in Black about her tattoo. So saying that it's a tattoo, or I guess a vengeance on the people that did this to her family. And the last person she needs to kill is Wyatt. So we've gone back to Wyatt. So Wyatt was a story introduced last episode. So it's interesting that these characters have this information. So that snake tattoo, it may have been there before Ford introduced their Wyatt story, so maybe he's reworking the Wyatt story. But anyway, so now the Man in Black knows about Wyatt, and that's where he is heading. I mean, there's more to talk about the Man in Black, but that's, I guess, the overall story around him. So trying to find the snakes, he finds the lady with the snake tattoo. They free Hector to get the information about the snake tattoo. Then Lawrence and the Man in Black head off to find Wyatt. I'll talk about more about that in a moment. I just want to kind of summarize a bit more of the story. Then I'll go into interesting parts about that and also about what Ford said. So let's talk about what Ford did say. So we see an interesting conversation. Very intriguing. So we have Theresa. I always forget her name. Theresa and Ford having a conversation. So we see Theresa kind of walk up to Ford, and there's this massive construction machine going on in the background. So it looks like he's mining, taking all the rocks and stones out of a certain area. So it looks like he's digging down to the church level. And we also see as well that he's employed, obviously not willingly, but the power of the hosts to, I guess, dig away as well. So we see a very intriguing conversation between Ford and Theresa. So many things from this. So we kind of see that Theresa is kind of pushing and saying, this storyline, you need to either stop it or, I guess, do it properly, because you're doing a lot of damage to the storylines and the board isn't going to be happy. And we see, I guess, an interesting kind of aggressiveness from Ford around this. So we start seeing him saying things like, he's made this entire world. He knows exactly what everybody is doing. So it's interesting how he kind of turns on her and says, you need to just don't get in my way. And I've managed to work with everyone previously in your job. So it was an interesting conversation, very, I guess, menacing from Ford. But yeah, turns around, tells her, the board is actually on my side. So, let's move on here. So now let's talk about the nitty-gritty. So the main things I want to go over again, is probably the Man in Black stuff and Ford's conversation. So the Man in Black said a lot of interesting stuff. So this is not quoting, but pretty much. So he said, "This whole world is a story. He wants to read. He's read every page except the last one, and he wants to find out how it ends and what it all means." So that was fascinating. And he also says, he quotes, he says stuff about Arnold. So he knows about Arnold. And for me, I kind of got the feeling that he knows that Arnold, I guess, Arnold's theories, and he was possibly around when Arnold was, because remember, he said he's been there 30 years ago. And that kind of ties in with what Ford said to Bernard last week. So yeah, he's saying that that Arnold made the park. He's the original settler, and he made it so you can't die. But he said Arnold managed to die, so he broke his own rule. So it seems, for me, I'm getting the theory, I guess, getting the vibe from this is that the Men in Black somehow has an association with Arnold, and he is trying to finish what Arnold was trying to do. And almost it seems as though that maybe Arnold was trying to make it so that the guests could die, that the hosts could kill the guests. And that's kind of the feeling I'm getting what the Men in Black is kind of do. He's trying to break the code, trying to get to the maze, to figure it out so he can understand how to make all the hosts real, or be able to function as real and break everyone free. So he almost seems as if he's trying to bring down the whole thing. And also another interesting point about the Men in Black, when he joined that team, the rabble that tried to break Hector out of the prison. So there was some guests in that group. One of them turned around to him. They were kind of whispering, and then one of them turned around to him and said, "I'm a big admirer of yours. Your foundation is amazing. You've pretty much saved my sister's life." And he turned around and said, "If you keep talking, I'm going to cut your throat. I'm on vacation." But we learnt more about him. So it seems that maybe he's to do with some medical association, and he doesn't seem to be associated with the park with Delos. And I've seen a lot of people theorize that he is a main part of the park. So I don't think he is. He might have an association with Arnold, but the foundation, it seems like it might be completely separate. Okay, so now let's talk about, for me, probably the best conversation of the whole thing, which was between Ford and Theresa. So that was really interesting. I've glossed over it before, but now I want to break it down because there's some really fascinating things come out of that. So once again, I mean, this isn't quote, but this is pretty much getting, my summary of what they were saying. So we saw, I guess, the whole menacing conversation turn with Ford really aiming at Theresa. And he started saying stuff as well, how Arnold said to him when they started, please, he begged Ford not to let Delos in because they're money men. So that was a very interesting point. And then he started saying that he didn't mind because he knows that Delos would never understand what this is. And started saying stuff like, it's not a business venture, it's not a theme park, it's an entire world. And that they have designed everything to each blade of grass. And in this world, they are gods and not guests, but Delos are guests. So that is intriguing. That really fascinated me, that conversation. So I almost got to the point where, with that, I think he's suggesting that Arnold and Ford are the creators and everyone else is just a guest. And even the workers, they're the same. They're just guests. So that conversation was fascinating. But it didn't stop there. We also saw, I guess, with the warning, the menacing conversation that Ford was aiming at Theresa, kind of saying that we know everything that's going on with the hosts and the guests. That would imply that we know everything about what she's doing. So he knows that she is in bed with Bernard. So with that, he has some ammo to really get her in trouble, because I believe Bernard is still married. It looked like that was his wife, or possibly his ex-wife. But maybe there's a rule there that there's no relationships in that situation between the staff. Who knows? But, he's definitely got some ammo against her now. But just saying that please don't get in my way, he'll ask once nicely. So that was a real cool conversation. I really liked it. And then we saw that big machine kind of come tearing back towards them. So for me, all that is more confirmation that this is a simulation and not the real world. Because that machine, once again, that is not a real situation that would just do that like that. That was crazy. And, but, if it was and saying that on the argument on the other side, if it was a simulation, why would you need to do that, right? Surely he has the power over everything anyway. So why would he not just manage to sculpt the world with his mind? Which is another interesting component. But yeah, fascinating conversation, really cool, very well acted. I really liked that place, and also the point of how once again about how they know everything about the ghosts, the guests and the hosts. Join that together, it became ghosts. So that the place where she was sitting when she came as a child, that's exactly the seat she is sitting in now. So they know everything. All the records are kept. They've got everything. And that's another thing as well. I mean, you're getting all the powerful people in this world and all this information is being kept about them. Maybe that's another thing here. So they're trying to get all the filthy details about all these super wealthy people coming in, and maybe they'll use that against them as well. Maybe just that's another point that that they could be angling this here. The whole privacy around data, is that the same situation in this world? And whilst we're talking about powerful people, and maybe they're going to use that as leverage. Maybe Delos is trying to use information as leverage, things like that. Maybe they're going down the whole Big Brother route here. If there's another interesting part I want to talk about, which is a conversation between Logan and William. So Logan kind of said, trying to get a bump in the stakes of the park. And, William turns around and says, why does everything have to be about business? And then, because if we remember, William is marrying Logan's sister. So then he turns around and says, with our family, everything is about business. So once again, a very powerful, rich family that possibly has some nefarious plan going on. So I shall leave my review here. I really enjoyed this episode. It was good. We had some really big story information coming through, some really big story changes, so some character progression. Some good action, not a lot of action, but not a lot of story progression, but enough to keep your interest peaked. For me anyway, I did. So I liked it. It was, once again, I guess a slower episode, but that's fine. I didn't mind that. It was still cool and interesting enough. So let me know your thoughts. Did you like the episode? Let me know your thoughts on my review. Let me know your thoughts on any theories. Check out my theory as well. I did a theory review on the world that they're in. I'll link to that above if you want to check it out. And so give me a thumbs up if you like my review, thumbs down if you didn't. And leave me some feedback below on WestWorld and on my review if you want. And also subscribe for future content from myself covering this, obviously, and also I'm covering the strain as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed making it, and I'll see you next time.